Hi, my name is Liz Blinn, and I am going to use this video to share with you some of the discussion that I had on this week's topics with my critical friend, Emily Casey. One of the first things that Emily and I discussed was that we both are definitely fans of the Habitudes and the mindset and sort of like future path that they promote for students. We agreed that it's one thing to give, students a certain set of skills, but it's another thing entirely for them to take those skills and continue to apply and use and understand them in the future. And that academic skills alone are not going to cut it, and that there has to be something else that will help them persevere well into what we might call the quote unquote real world. The last thing that Emily and I both really appreciated about the Habitudes is that the curriculum lends itself for a lot of different age groups and a lot of just flexibility in general. It can be a little overwhelming for teachers to have to teach their content, but then also have all this pressure, all these expectations for them to include this additional curriculum, when in reality, something like the Habitudes, it will take some work to prep, but it can definitely be worked into not so much even curriculum, but just day-to-day interactions and intentionality that we model as teachers within our classrooms. One of the other topics that we discussed was that of grit. Grit is actually one that I am particularly passionate about, as I already feature the word in big black letters on my classroom wall. It's one that Angela Duckworth, in her TED Talk was very adamant that students absolutely need to have if they are going to indeed go far into their future. One thing that Emily and I sort of discussed is where we see grit happen the most. And what we definitely both agreed on was that it's not always the obvious. And Duckworth's TED Talk spoke to this as well, but it's not just kids with the quote unquote academic smarts that have grit. In fact, they can be entirely lacking in it. But sometimes it's kids who have experienced other things, particularly experiences that might be uncommon for their age group, that those kids have already acquired some type of grit in their lives, whether they know that's what it is or not. Ultimately, when it comes to teaching students about positive dispositions or grit or habitudes, one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal are our own experiences and our own stories. So when it comes down to it, a lot of this absolutely starts with us. In her Perseverance chapter, Myers specifically talks about how powerful it can be to share our own stories of struggle and failure with kids. Not only can it build respect between a student and a teacher, but it also adds credence or validity to the message overall. And if they can see the truth of the habitude within our own experiences as their teacher, that they might be willing to try it out themselves or to think about it at the very least, and begin to practice some of those same characteristics. To conclude, Emily and I had shared some of our favorite quotes from this week's resources, and the one that I can't get out of my head here at the end is in Myers' work, and that is, "Let the language of empowerment and opportunity ring through your classroom. Show the world that greatness is not a genetic predisposition, but is a position in which we can place all of our students."